the most beautiful difference between contraception and natural family planning is that natural family planning cooperates with a woman's body, how it's created, and understanding her natural cycle. And using that wisdom, using that prudence, using those observations to make the right choice. Whereas contraception is really woman abuse. I've said that many times. It really is woman abuse. Hey, this is Mama Jane.
And this is Mama Vicky. Welcome to the Cycles and Sanctity podcast.
I'm a Billings ovulation method instructor and a certified Catholic mindset coach.
And I'm a labor and delivery nurse, an IVCLC, and a La Leche League leader.
We're here to share with you the beauty and the pain of your cycles.
Have you considered honoring your cycle throughout the journey of your womanhood?
Have you ever considered your cycle as a tool towards your holiness?
Well, sisters, it is. We're excited to walk this journey with you.
So go grab your favorite journal and pen and your hot beverage, and let's do this. Welcome back, Catholic Divas, to the Cycles and Sanctity podcast. And we are so excited. I'm excited at any rate about this whole month because as a NFP promoter for many years and then becoming an NFP instructor, this is just my jam. I've been asked many times, like, if you could talk about something forever, even when you're sick, even when you're tired, even when you're hungry, I always go back to NFP. So this week, we are going to be talking about this idea of, is NFP Catholic contraception? It's been told to me many times, and we're going to kind of answer that question, and because it's simpler and deeper than you might think. Welcome, Mama Vicky.
Hey there, Mama Jane. Yes, this is a topic that is definitely near and dear. And I just highly encourage, if you're a wife listening to this, and you can convince your husband to listen to this, I 10 out of 10 recommend, because natural family planning is a joint effort. It takes you both. Two to tango.
Yes.
And when both of you can understand what you're tackling and get on the same page, that makes this delicate topic easier.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking about marriage. We've been talking about unions. We talked about before about how the Catechism talks about, because of original sin, the two disorders that are in a marriage that we must fight all the time is lust and dominion.
Mm-hmm.
And natural family planning really helps, I have seen, like you always say, when used appropriately, because just like anything, we can use it disorderly. And that's what I really want to talk about, is how do we use NFP in a disordered manner, and so that it does start looking like Catholic contraception.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, we have to distinguish what contraception is and what natural family planning is, or NFP.
Mm-hmm.
Contraception is intentionally rendering the sexual act infertile with some sort of outside source, either a pill, IUD, sterilization, condoms, or even what we call the pull-out method. It's morally, what's the word? Illicit. It is a mortal sin because it separates the love from the life.
Right.
And that is the whole premise of contraception. And again, the reason why really the last week of July is called National NFP Week, but I'm taking the whole month because we just have to continue talking about this. We just don't talk about it enough.
Well, the thing is, in modern culture, in the secular world, many of you have experienced it. I mean, the baby's barely out of your body, and they're like, so what are you using for birth control? And if you say, oh, well, natural family planning, one, a lot of people don't understand. They're like, oh, the calendar method. And then two, they're like, oh, they call people that use NFP parents. Ha 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 ha. And it's honestly, it's disrespectful, because it is not validating a very sure way to plan your family.
Yeah.
And there's always a rumor, once you roll out with more than 3 kids, they're like, oh, are you Catholic or Mormon? Ha ha ha. And it is a misconception that Catholics have to have as many kids as your body can produce.
Mm-hmm.
Some families that works. And that is what the Lord is calling. But sometimes it doesn't, whether it's financial, whether it's health of the mother or the father, or maybe the health of other kids and their standards. I feel like contraception is just so, well, just take this, and then whenever you want to have kids, stop. And that doesn't include sterilization because that's permanent. And that is offered way too much, way too young, in my opinion. I mean, that's a very big, big decision. And anyway, I'm just happy you're here, Mama Jane, to promote, to encourage our listeners for natural family planning, because guys, it's hard, but the closeness that you will gain in your marriage by appropriately applying it to your marriage is priceless.
Absolutely. And it's just one of those things that is a gift from the church. It
Mhm.
really is a gift from the church. Now, I'm really tempted to go history because, as Steve always says, you ask Jane what time it is, and not only is she going to tell you what time it is, she's going to tell you about the clock, and then she's going to tell you the history of the clock. I won't go there. We have had other podcasts, and maybe we will go there another episode, because it is important for us to understand the beginning of the end, the whole concept of contraception. And this is what I fight all the time with many people. The whole mindset of contraception is that our bodies are bad, that we have to suppress a healthy organ or healthy system, the reproductive system, in order not for it to function well. When I explain it like that, people are like, what? Because we just accept contraception. I mean, I can't tell you, and you and I have talked about this so many times about how women, young teenagers, they go in for acne, and the first response from the medical professional is go on contraception.
Mhm.
Or even we've been talking about our midlife women, right? In that you're having hot flashes or you're having heavy bleeding. Oh, well, go on contraception. And it's like, why is contraception the end all be all?
Well, I have to put this out there for the secular world. We're talking about natural family planning. We really are talking to our married Catholic couples. And this is not to exclude anyone, because as Mama and Jane and I have said on every podcast, if we can get it in, the Lord always wants you to come back whenever that is. So
Mhm.
if you've been on contraception, there is a way back. There's a way back. But who we're addressing is married couples, not the single girl or the single guy out doing whatever young people do when they're not practicing the faith at the time. So just remember, this is directed towards that and natural family planning. And that's what God created us to become one and make babies. That's
Yeah.
our job. And again, not that you have to have 12 babies. You don't have to have as many as you possibly can. And that's why it's so beautiful, because natural family planning done well, you must communicate with your spouse. I mean, the wife has to tell him when you're on your cycle or what you're feeling or where you're at. And then hopefully he'll chart for you and kind of get him some skin in the game, so to say.
Yeah, yeah,
I just wanted
absolutely.
to
It really,
clarify, like, this is not to be used loosely in your wild and free days.
yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things that Steve and I have talked about when I first heard about natural family planning, because you and I've talked about our stories, we weren't taught this. I wasn't ever exposed to the concept of natural family planning,
And I'm sure there's lots of women and wives out and families out there that aren't. You just don't know.
which
It's never brought up.
that's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, because if I could just shout on the rooftops what it is and what it's not. And so it's not contraception. It's not taking love and life separate. So Humanae Vitae, which is the document 1968, Paul VI wrote in response to the marketing of the pill.
Mhm.
And the bottom line is every marital act must be open to two parts. It must be life-giving and it must be love-giving. And when one of those areas is not, then it is not even a marital act, right? It's a
Right, right.
personal
Just an act.
satisfaction act. We're not
Mhm.
going to get into that. If people have that, then Steve Percorny, we can send you to Freedom Coaching and Jeremy Rohr and all of those things, right? But the beautiful thing about natural family planning as opposed to contraception is that while you may use natural family planning to wait for children or to don't really like the word avoid children, but not have the child at that moment.
Mhm.
Like you said, it brings the couple together to have that conversation. each and every month, we've got to look at the other and say, are we open to another child this month? And
Yes.
the beautiful thing about that is it could change as the month goes closer to the ovulatory phase. Whereas contraception, many times a woman gets on a pill and the conversation never happens like, oh, we're going to have a baby in 3 years. And yet in year 1.5, she feels called to have a baby. But how does she start that conversation with him when they've already had the conversation that it's going to be 3 years?
Hmm.
And even if that pulling on her heart was like, we're called to have a baby 18 months into this relationship, getting off contraception doesn't always guarantee conceiving right away.
Hmm.
And that's the other part. But the most beautiful difference between contraception and natural family planning is that natural family planning cooperates with a woman's body, how it's created, and understanding her natural cycle. And using that wisdom, using that prudence, using those observations to make the right choice. Whereas contraception is really woman abuse. I've said that many times. It really is woman abuse because who in their right mind would develop some sort of drug or some sort of mechanism that would suppress a healthy heart so that it wouldn't pump the blood throughout the body? Like that's what contraception does if we really think about what the purpose of it is.
And again, guys, we're talking about married couples here. And we know that we're all, unfortunately, humans are selfish and sinful. And lust is something that everybody has to fight. A lot of times it's painted that it's only the men out there fighting, but women are susceptible too.
And just real quick, we heard that from Steve in that episode a few weeks ago that there are more women. He actually hired 2 women coaches because women are being attracted to pornography. We kind of always associated pornography with a men issue, and now
Mhm.
it's becoming a women's issue. Although, like you said, novellas and the romance novels
Right.
probably were always soft porn for us.
Well, and again, this conversation is not a condemning conversation that we're having. This is a conversation to let people know what NFP is and what it is not, and how NFP can enhance your faith and your walk with God.
Yes,
So I just
exactly.
wanted to be really clear. We're not condemning anybody. We're not judging anybody. And sometimes NFP, like if you find another couple that does natural family planning, or there's a couple groups out there, Facebook, whatever, that support it, but not the intention might be different than a Catholic mindset.
Yes, and that's really what we want to talk about is the mindset.
Mhm.
That's the slippery slope of how natural family planning can become Catholic contraception because of the
Mhm.
mindset. And I've even spoken to that with instructors. Sometimes the way the information is presented in order to chart and to follow the rules, it's to avoid a pregnancy. And then at the end, it's like, oh, and by the way, if you want to get pregnant, these are the things. And I'm like, that's kind of opposite. But
Mhm.
again, it's to show that God has created a perfect way to determine whether this is the right time to have a baby or not. Again, it's the free will, it's the gift of prudence, it's the gift of wisdom, understanding, counsel. Like you said, it's the gift of communication with the
Mhm.
couple.
Well, the other thing, families, if you come together in the marital act, you are open to children by definition, whether you
Yes.
do it in maritally or unmaritally. If you engage in the act of intercourse, that you may not think you're open to life, but the act itself is always open to life because if God wills it, then there will be a way.
Well,
So,
because that's the purpose of the
right,
organs.
exactly.
That's going back to the beginning of like it's called the reproductive system because the purpose of the reproductive system is to reproduce, to
Hmm.
generate. And that is the beauty and that what's the Catholic Church teaches is that is a gift unto a married couple.
It is. And that's why I was hoping you touch on that mindset of when couples are using NFP prayerfully, they are open to life, even if you're postponing children at that time, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Because it
Yeah.
could be a day off. I mean, here's the thing. Maybe you miscalculated a sign or it's not infallible. Nothing's infallible.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's just a way to come together and it makes you vulnerable. But once you can be vulnerable with your spouse and you're safe, then you can go a little deeper.
And here's the other aspect of it that I love about natural family planning is it leans in on your relationship with the Lord. It's
Mm-hmm.
that three-ply
Yes.
cord. And years ago, when I first began teaching, I had a couple. She came to me. She wanted me to look at her chart. She had a number of children already and was like, I think I'm pregnant. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, you didn't follow the rule here. You had relations on day 2. You were supposed to wait. And she's like, wait, what? Because they had forgotten the rules. They'd gotten a little sloppy. And it was interesting because I coached her later when she did become pregnant and she was so angry. And she
Mm.
told me, I am so angry about NFP. I can't stand the fact that I got pregnant. And I'm like, you're right. And she's like, of course, I accept this baby. But she was angry because she's like, I just wanted to wait a few more years. I'm overwhelmed. And they had these financial issues. And she gave me the whole list of circumstances why this was not a good time to have this child. Right. And I kind of gave a little bit of a hard coaching, was like, okay, girlfriend, I knew their situation. I knew them socially. I'm like, your husband's got a good job. Yeah, your house is a little bit tiny, but you could still have another child. And I just kind of kept pouring into her about children are a gift. And it was interesting because through that pregnancy, they were able to financially obtain some of the things that she had, like her goals of like, we want to pay off this car and do these other things, right? And everything that she had wanted financially, thinking that that was the reason why they shouldn't be able to have this child is because finances achievable by the end of the pregnancy. And she had this beautiful birth and she came back to me and she's like, I will never say that again. I will always be open. And it was just this 180-degree or
Well,
change
that
of
goes back
perspective.
to what they said. If you're engaging in intercourse, then you're open to life, whether you think
Yes,
it or not.
exactly. Exactly. But again, it was the relying on the Lord and trusting
Yeah.
in the Lord and
Yes.
recognizing that children are not burden. That's the other undermining mindset
Language.
contraception
Mhm.
promotes, is that children are a burden. Children are to be feared. Children are the worst thing. I mean, how many times have we heard that children will ruin your life? Those are all lies from the enemy. Those are
Mhm.
all lies from the enemy. Children are always good,
Mhm.
even no matter how they were conceived. And that's just a fact. And I know a lot of people will give me these situations of like, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about that? And that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking
No.
about in a marital life. And
Yes.
here's the thing that, again, going back to Steve and I, when we first were introduced to natural family planning, he had to remind me because there was a study years and years ago. They studied for 10 years, like 100 couples that were practicing contraception and 100 couples that were practicing natural family planning. And at the end of the 10 years, 50% of the contraceptive couples ended in divorce, and only 5% of the couples that practice NFP ended in divorce. And I was like, well, okay. And Steve has to remind me, like, NFP is not marriage insurance.
Right. No,
And
it isn't. But
it
you need all the tools you can get in a marriage because marriage is really hard.
it is. And here's the other thing that Steve reminded me of. Those who did well with NFP may have already had a well-established communication or developed a better communication through natural family planning. Because, like you said, every month the woman has to be diligent, be faithful in looking at what is her body telling her so that she understands what part of the cycle she's in. Is she fertile or is she not fertile? And then to understand the rules. And I always give the guys the rules because they're the guardians and
Mhm.
they're the ones to understand, hey, this is a fertile time. Are we going to choose to abstain and not be open to life at this moment? Or are we going to come together and understand that the likelihood of us conceiving a child is very, very high? And that's the couple's decision.
That's where I want to touch on. If the choice is to postpone, what do you do instead? I equate so many things to winning, like when you're winning a baby. Like anytime you want to start something new or do something different, you have to replace it with something else. And the goal is to not replace it with bad things. So
Yeah.
what are you going to do if you guys have both mutually decided now's not the month to try to conceive? But dude, I would love to do the act to conceive.
Yes.
So this is very frustrating. What are the moral and what are some safe things you can do instead? I mean, the husband should shower the wife with love. I mean, it is a
Yes.
hard time. That sounds kind of crazy, but it is.
I'm so glad you said that because that is really the key about the difference between natural family planning and contraception is that when a couple has decided that at the time a child is not the best thing for their family for whatever reason, they've gone through that discernment process. The time of fertility, when they choose to abstain from the marital act, is a time where they get to develop their relationship in other ways.
Hmm.
And when I was introduced to natural family planning, it was really delving into it when we were infertile and I had a daughter. I realized I'm teaching her how to date well.
Hmm.
That's what you do. You go back to your dating behavior.
Hmm.
And so, what do you do on your date? You might be reading a book together. You may go do some sports together. You may go on an adventure. You may have a project. I use the acronym SPICE: spiritual, physical, intellectual, creative, and emotional.
Mm.
And we'll put that in the show notes. That is a really great little kind of how can we be creative together? Because again, the woman's body during the fertile time, I mean, one of the faulty mindsets is it's hard for the guy to abstain. No,
Mm.
it is hard for the girl to abstain
Hmm.
because her whole body is saying, let's make a baby.
Hmm. And the other thing that natural family planning does is if you're in a young marriage, you don't ever think of the marital act not being on the table. Like it's always an option, but things happen in life and people get sick or injured or just a myriad of things that can happen that are gonna, if that is your only closeness, if that's the only time you really come together in that way only, and you don't have any other skills of how to come together and feel safe and intimate, I mean, that is a detriment to your marriage. So again, this is all about keeping marriages intact. It's not insurance, but you're sure going to have more success if you've been practicing. Okay, well, we're not going to make love, but we love each other. So what else are we going to do?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. And because we're all mind, body, soul, we're a whole composite. And so the contraceptive mentality can become when we have sex, that means our marriage is good.
Right. Also, the way not to do NFP is to be upset. Like it is not okay for either partner to be upset during fertile time and lash out or be neglectful, abusive, cruel, unfaithful, none of these things. And sometimes I have seen people quote practicing NFP and during that time they're a mess, they're fighting, it's ugly, and that is the exact opposite of what the Lord wants for sure. I know when I first got into natural family planning, and I would just be like, "Oh gosh, I do want to make a baby." And then like the support I would find, like, we'll go say a rosary. Well, if I'm in baby making mood, rosary is not my number one go to. But if your husband comes in and says, let's do the rosary together, or maybe not the rosary, but let's walk around, let's do something different. And that's what I'm talking about. You've got to find that. And when one of you gets edgy, the other one has to be like, hey, now we came to this decision together. Let's get through it together.
Yeah, and that's actually one of those reasons why on the creative side of that spice, I
Hmm.
recommend to couples like, hey, that's the time if you've got some kind of home projects to do, even for a week or something, like let's focus on that
Put
because
down the dresser.
we're
Hmm.
creating something,
And a
just
garden.
not a baby, you
Yeah.
know? And so you're kind of almost channeling that creative energy, if you
Hmm.
will. And
Sure.
I tell the young girls too,
Yeah.
because that's many times where you hear at the pregnancy centers and stuff, well, I only had sex with my boyfriend once. Well, yeah, of course, because you could say no until you entered into that ovulatory
Hmm.
phase. And you didn't even know that you were in an ovulatory phase because
Right.
we haven't talked to you and we haven't taught you how to recognize those signals.
Yes.
That's the part of the problem. But going back to open to life, that's one of the beauties. Yeah, we get that joke, right? Like if you have more than three, oh, you must be Catholic or you must be Mormon, right? Or you've got your sixth kid and like, hey, do you guys not have a TV?
Right.
The irony of it is that love begets love.
Hmm.
Like my friend who at the beginning, her thought was, we can't afford this child. We have this financially. And the Lord just provided for her. And I haven't seen her in a number of years, but I know she has at least two more children, which is
Mhm.
so beautiful. Again, it's the
Um,
conversion of the heart.
I had a dear friend that told me once that love is like a candle. I always cry when I say this because here's the point, if you add more candles, it doesn't make the light dimmer, it makes the light brighter. You know?
Yes.
So I just always thought that was so beautiful because it is
Mm.
hard. And when you're in the middle of it and you shoot, and when you're the mother and you have 6 kids and now you find out you're pregnant with number 7, sometimes even though you are open to life, it's just like, "Oh my god, how am I gonna do this?" You know? But that's life. That's our life, isn't it? And I also wanted to touch on this. If you're using natural family planning to conceive and you're not conceiving, I think one of the solaces is you can see through your charting that you are doing everything right, and for some reason, it isn't meant to be at this time. I'm not saying it makes it easier, less heartbreaking or anything like that, but maybe a little bit of peace knowing, "Hey, look, we've charted, we're showing our instructor, she's like, 'You're spot on,' and for whatever reason, it's not happening." You have a little bit of a like, "Well, it's not because I'm doing something wrong."
I'm so glad you said it because that was part of my story was that I
Mhm,
had these beautiful charts that ideally, quote unquote, we should have conceived. And
mhm,
we had secondary infertility. So we had a child. So I
mhm,
knew that my body had worked once. And that was my personal frustration with the infertile medical community was
mhm,
like, what is wrong with my body? And their answer, just like the other answer is contraception. The infertile answer is IVF,
mhm,
and I had to stand up for the unity because basically the quote unquote sin of IVF is the lack of the unitive. Again, it has to be procreative and unitive,
mhm,
life giving and love giving. The unitive aspect also is imperative to be respected. And that's where I realized, like, okay, Lord, you gave me this time to be infertile and to start understanding the gift of natural family planning, to stand up to the community and say, no, I'm not doing that. No, my husband's not taking that test. No, we're not doing it that way. You have to find a different way. And they were like, first of all, they thought we were crazy, but I was just
mhm,
like, I'm sorry. I'm not going to jeopardize our salvation for the sake of a child. And I think that's the part of like, what do we view a child as? Do we view a child as a gift? Do we view a child as a commodity? Like, I'm going to do
mhm,
anything and everything to get a child, or I'm going to do anything and everything not to have a child.
mhm,
That's the mindset that we're
mhm.
all called to work on. Because, like you said, when the baby number 7 comes and you're overwhelmed and you're like, well, of course I'm open to life, but Father, I'm drowning. Can you
Mhm.
help me a little
Yes.
bit, Jesus? And so
Literally, meaning that so literally.
yeah, exactly. And having children is a hard thing.
Mhm.
And having children in this day and age is a hard thing. I will acknowledge that. And it does take two.
Yes,
A-
it
And
does
it
take 2.
and yet I will tell you that with a couple of my children, I kept those charts for numbers of years when we finally
Mhm.
conceived them because it was just such a gift, right? Because like I said, I'd had so many of these charts that were supposed to be like, oh, they look good, but something's not right, which is why I remind my infertile couples the Holy Spirit is the Lord, the giver of life. Like
Mhm.
we can do everything. And that again, where NFP can get into that slippery slope of contraception, like we're doing everything, we're doing it by the book, da 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 da. Hey, I should expect a child. It's not an ATM
Right.
machine.
And so either way, you have to be open to life, but also you have to be in the accepting place that for whatever reason, the Lord is saying no. Unfortunately, in this subject, a lot of times there's a lot of good or bad labels put on that are it's not that. Some of it's just facts. And if this is all clear as mud, guys, if we've been talking to you and you're like, wow, what are Mama and Vicky and Mama Jane saying? They've gone off their rocker. Please get in touch with us because we do want to explore this because what it does for your marriage is worth it. It's worth it. And maybe there's people out there that who knows when you got together. Maybe it's a second marriage and one of you got sterilized. I mean, there's ways to deal with that. Or you're currently on contraception. You're like, wow, this is really touching me. I want to get into this. I want to know more. Guys, there are ways back. God never leaves you in a place with 0 choices.
Yes. And it's just like the exultant Easter, oh, happy fault, right? the prodigal son, you're always welcome. You're always welcome. You're always welcome. So please, yes, reiterating what Mama Vicky said, this is not a conversation of condemnation. This is a conversation of life-giving truth, the fullness of the truth. The truth will set you free.
And, I have to say one more thing to Mama Jane is that, we had this talk before. Clearly, we're Catholic, so we believe that it's right, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. And there are a lot of things in this world that are right that are very hard.
Yes. Yes, because our Lord said, if you want to follow me, you must pick up your cross, die to yourself, pick up your cross and follow me. And where does that cross lead? To the
Heaven.
crucifixion. Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean,
But yes,
to
ultimately.
death, but so
Yes.
to
Yeah.
death ourself.
Yes.
And
It doesn't have to be the whole hard walk, doesn't have to stay miserable,
yes, that's
so you
right.
can do hard things with joy.
That's right. And with the Lord, he makes all things good. He makes all things new.
As we talk about this, ladies, we're walking the walk with you. I mean, we're married, so
Yes.
we get it. And we want you to reach out, and we're a safe space to come and give us all the feelings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'd like to leave a little tidbit for you. What I have discovered when I'm doing hard things, the Catholic Church is so amazing and just so wise. When I have a hardship, whatever it is, if it's physical, emotional, situational, this sounds really easy, but it's not. To offer it, to unite it to the Lord's suffering. And typically, especially when I was in my infertile, this really helped me shift my infertility and my mindset and my depression and sadness and woe is me and all the things. When I would discover that I hadn't gotten pregnant, I would offer that time for those who are also suffering. I
Mhm,
would actually be praying for those who are practicing natural family who are struggling in their abstinence.
mhm, mhm,
Those other women who are not conceiving either.
mhm,
I mean, the Lord just would always flood me with people that I could be praying and offering this suffering with or
mhm,
for. And again, it's that fasting and that feasting, right? It's the liturgical life. Like the liturgical life calls us to fast and to feast. And natural family planning that's kind of the way it is. It's the rhythm.
mhm.
And we're talking about July. We're hot as heck, right?
Yeah,
But it's gonna soon get to be cool, and then we're gonna
yes,
be freezing in the
yes, the heat
cold.
will go away, that's true.
Yeah, yeah, so remember, God is mercy. His mercy is always available. So going back to our 4 spiritual practices, if you have been contracepting, if you have, for whatever reason, whatever the situation, I'm gonna encourage you to go speak with your priest, go to confession. Maybe you haven't used natural family planning, maybe you have had it as a contraceptive mindset. You've been using NFP as a contraceptive mindset. Maybe that's where you're being called to repent. Repentance is always setting free. Repentance means to turn around.
In your parish, I mean, priests are human too, so if you don't get the exact answer, your priest might be like, "Oh, hey, that's not my forte, but here's so and so's name. Please don't just give up at the first turn because it's a tough subject. It's a tough
Mhm,
subject."
mhm.
But I just want healthy relationships for all of our mamas. And although NFP has its challenges, but marriage does. Like you can't get out of marriage without challenges. So
Yeah,
like the more to the right and the more you involve God, the better it's going to be.
yeah. I mean, it's just like going to the gym.
Yeah.
Picking up that 20-pound weight is kind of hard,
Mm-hmm.
but the fruit of it is strong muscles,
Mm-hmm.
stronger bones for us women who need to build those
That's
muscles and
right.
those
Mhm.
bones, right? So, yeah, the great thing about NFP, again, it's not Catholic contraception. It's a path to love, to trust, and to be sanctified,
Mm-hmm.
to grow in holiness, which is what our whole podcast is all
Yes.
about. So, before we close, I do have a journal question, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. We're really encouraging our listeners to journal about these topics. So the journal question is, what is the intention behind our use of natural family planning? And how is God inviting us to trust him more?
Mhm.
It's a great question to also give to your husband.
Yeah, it is. And that's a great door opener. If this is a hard topic for you guys, this is a great, and if you can't even say it, you can write it down, leave it on a note. Food for thought.
Yeah. Yes, that's beautiful.
Because husbands like notes too.
That's
They
right.
secretly do.
That's right. So although they're not saints yet, their cause is open. We want to ask Dr. John and Dr. Lynn Billings, who created the Billings ovulation method, which is the method that I teach, to intercede for us because they understood the gift. They actually had started this 15 years before Humanae Vitae was even written by Paul VI. So they're great intercessors. While they're not officially, their cause is open to canonization. So we can always ask for a miracle, beseech them. And until next week.
Yeah. See you next week, ladies.
All right. God bless you, divas. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Go ahead and subscribe and share it to your best friends. And it would really help us if you wrote a review. Tell us how we're doing. We want to hear from you.
And come on over to our Facebook page at Cycles and Sanctity and join our conversation. That's where we can talk every day and make this podcast into what you want to hear.
See you next week, divas.